Good evening, everyone. As Dr. DeClaire said, yes, my name is Brad Wetzel. I'm a senior here at Lynchburg College. I'm a Westover Honors, blah, blah, blah. And I have the honor tonight of introducing our speaker. Originally from Annapolis, Maryland, Dr. Michael Robinson earned a BA in radio, television, and film and a BS in psychology from the University of Maryland College Park in 1991. An MA in telecommunications from Indiana University in 1994, and a PhD in American Cultural Studies from Bowling Green State University in the year 2000. His scholarly interests include audience research, genre studies, science fiction, comic books and superheroes, media history, media criticism, just a few things. All of which are demonstrated in his classes, as well as his weekly Nerd Factor column in the Critograph. He also contributes to coverage of pop culture for both local and national media. Dr. Robinson specializes in popular culture. He regularly teaches media and culture, introduction to film, media criticism, so forth. You kind of get the idea by now. Dr. Robinson also regularly teaches in the Westover Honors program and is currently teaching a colloquium entitled Big Universe, Small Screen, Science Fiction, Television, and Popular Culture. He's a strong supporter of honors education here at Lynchburg College. He's a recipient of the Westover Faculty Appreciation Award and is a Westover Faculty Fellow. Next year, Dr. Robinson will be teaching a colloquium that addresses the economic, social, and cultural impact of Disney, and this colloquium will include a spring break trip to Disney World, which as a senior, that's not fair.
That was,
Okay.
You don't have to graduate. As your advisor, I can assure you have another year.
Fair enough. Outside of the world of academics, Dr. Robinson enjoys spending spare time with his wife, daughter, and son. He cites Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Doctor Who as his favorite shows, both of which he very frequently references in all of his classes. And he regularly has a battle with his ever-growing backlog of comic books and recorded shows. I think I'm starting to see that even in my own life, so I'm just like, I hope I never hit Dr. Mike levels.
That's right. Be strong, Brett.
He's the Communication Studies Department Chair, my own thesis director, and our speaker for this evening, Dr. Michael Robinson.
Brett was instructed to just make things up, so let me ask. Hi, welcome. In July of this summer, this happened. Okay, so, no, it wants to be watched twice. Yeah, just stop. You know what, I'll close that. So, teaching all these years, I've learned that videos do whatever they want. So, depending upon who you are, that little moment there either thrilled you no end, that did come up, didn't it? Yes. Either thrilled you no end, or filled you with revulsion, or as many of you here who just blank looks of, I'm not sure why that matters. And hopefully we will address all of those things tonight. So this is my presentation. Doctor has no gender in English, character change in popular science fiction and superhero texts. So this happened. When it happened, this was a kind of watershed moment, and I'll explain why in a bit. But this reveal on BBC One took place after a very major soccer game, okay? And many, many fans of the British series Doctor Who were just waiting for this moment. This was a pivotal moment. This was very exciting for them. And when this happened, if you were in my house, you heard me cackle with laughter. I was very pleased. And of course, all around the internet, people started talking. So this sort of thing started happening. And I tried to find some representative stuff here. So here is a tweet. My 8-year-old daughter pumped her fist and shouted yes when the new Doctor Who was revealed. I think that tells you all you need to know. Down here, this is from Colin Baker, who was one of the actors that used to play Doctor Who. Well, the BBC really did do the right thing and let the Doctor be in touch with her feminine side as a father of daughters result. But this sort of thing also happened. Time Lord, right? He patented all caps, I'm very serious. Time Lord, I repeat, the Doctor is a Time Lord, not a Time Lady. And then that was I'm not watching anymore. So, why is all this happening? What is going on? What is occurring? Well, first, just a little bit of context, okay, for the uninitiated, for those of you that have not enjoyed this program. Doctor Who is a BBC program that began in November of 1963. Literally, it was the first thing on after the coverage of the Kennedy assassination, which meant nobody watched it, so they showed it again the next week, and it went going from there. And basically, what it was designed to be, it's not what it stayed completely, but what it was designed to be was a family show. Okay, so this was something that English viewers could sit down, mom and dad, the kids, whatever they call the nuclear family over there, could sit down, watch the show together. And the show had a kind of double purpose. So it was meant to be entertaining. Okay, so here's science fiction, and you can have adventure, people tune in and watch this. But it was also meant to be educational, because as you'll see in a moment, this is about time travel. And so every other story was supposed to be this adventure to go back and meet a historical figure. Like Marco Polo, we can go hang out with Marco Polo. We can go see what the Aztecs did. So they kind of sold it that way. They said, this is fun, but it's also good for you. It didn't stay that way because the science fiction elements sort of overtook the program very, very quickly. Now, we're not going to talk about Daleks very much tonight, but there were these things that were introduced very early on, very classic science fiction monsters, and their popularity would soon make almost the entire show a science fiction program. That box, right, that you see there in the picture, right there, that box is a TARDIS, okay? And that stands for time and relative dimension in space, okay? That box is bigger on the inside than on the outside, and it is one of the most magical plot devices ever created in the history of Western fiction because it lets you go anywhere and any when, all right? It is a highly unreliable time and space traveling machine, okay? Much like the show that originated it, which is also kind of a highly unreliable time and space machine. So, the Doctor Who phenomenon is really kind of fascinating to American audiences. I used to call Doctor Who the most popular show you've never heard of. But slowly but surely over the last 10 years, people have been kind of like, no, Dr. Mike, I've heard of this. So, it is making its place. I would put it up in the stratosphere. If you want to name the 3 big science fiction properties, it's Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who. Okay, but that's the leg of the stool that most people aren't aware of completely. The show ran in England from 1963 to 1989, 26 seasons of varying size and length. In the original series, they did so many episodes that they were actually literally killing the first actor to play the part. And then, by the end, they weren't doing very many, like 14 half-hour episodes. They tried to bring it back in 1996 for one television movie that aired on the BBC and over here on Fox. And then in 2005, they brought it back as kind of a British signature series. The BBC wanted to prove that they could be back in the game. What is the BBC good at? It's good at drama. Let's go back to our roots. Let's throw some money at Doctor Who. Let's have a shot. Okay? So, in the UK, Doctor Who is a cultural institution. All right? This is like Spider-Man. This is like Superman. This is like Batman. This is just something that the Brits know. Okay, it's part of their life. It has a huge connection. That doesn't mean everybody's a fan, but it's just something they're aware of. Much in the same way that you may not care about Batman, but you get very upset, say, when Ben Affleck gets to be Batman, right? That sort of thing. We'll talk about that. Talk about that. Over here in the United States, Doctor Who was first brought in on independent television stations. I watched it on as part of Captain Chesapeake on Channel 45 in Baltimore, and it did very, very poorly. Nobody watched it. So it found a friend in PBS, okay, and it became sort of what people here called cult television, which didn't mean like you watched it, sacrificed goats or something. It just meant that nobody was really aware of it, right? It was this little thing that only a certain small set of people knew. But it has become increasingly popular in the United States, particularly over here thanks to the Sci-Fi Channel and now BBC America, okay? Now, a show that's lasted as long as it has to do something to survive, okay? It has to keep itself going in a number of ways. And this isn't a full Doctor Who discussion. There are many other mechanisms that this show has to keep itself going. But probably the most important mechanism is what's called regeneration, okay? Because once every now and then, this show just completely recasts and recreates its lead character, okay? And they did this because the first Doctor, right up there in the corner, William Hartnell, he became too ill to continue the part. The show was very, very popular. Kids loved it. Adults loved it. But poor Hartnell, he was just ill. He had arterial sclerosis, and it was affecting his ability to remember lines. It was making him very temperamental. And they sat down and they said, okay, we've got to do something. Okay, what can we do? And luckily, somebody said, well, he's an alien, right? Sure. Okay, he's an alien. They hadn't even used the word Time Lord yet. This is how careful they were. It was kind of smart. He's an alien, right? Yeah. So let's say he dies, and he falls to the floor, and he gets back up, and he's somebody else. Okay. So that's what they did. That's what happened. And so the part was taken over by Patrick Troughton. And so the tendency here is to refer to doctors by their numbers. Okay, so the first Doctor, the second Doctor, the third Doctor, and on down the line. There is a if you're a big fan of Doctor Who, you know that there's a Doctor I haven't included here that's out of the numbering system. But it's worked all the way up to the present. So in the bottom corner there, you see Peter Capaldi, who's the 12th Doctor, right? And now Jodie Whittaker will be the 13th Doctor. So if you've been paying attention, you might notice one really essential difference between Jodie Whittaker and these other people. She's not a man. The idea of who the Doctor will be is a thing of intense speculation over there. Okay, because you know the British, they bet on everything, right? So they run the odds. They run books. This will be on the news. The rumor will start flying, and people will start saying, "Wait, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be?" And it's always Idris Elba. They always Idris Elba. Well, it's going to be Idris Elba. And it never is, but they're like, "But the monitor says Idris Elba." No, it's not. But it's just something that when you know it's coming, you get very, very excited about it. And because of the nature of the show, you always know that it's going to happen before it happens, right? It's not a surprise. You're aware of it coming in. This picture here is Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor. He was the youngest actor to ever play the part. They tried desperately to keep people from finding out what's going on. That picture there of Matt Smith did not have the TARDIS in it. The TARDIS was not there. They just went down to a basement somewhere and snapped a picture of Matt Smith. The person that took that photo literally did not know that they were taking a picture of the next Doctor, right? That's the level of secrecy that they try to have, that they try to maintain on these things, okay? So that's a lot of background, all right? So we've had a show. The show has lasted for a long time. Many different actors have been in the part, right? When they play the part, I didn't mention that. They sort of play with different personalities and different attitudes. It's the same character, but it's a different character. Just trust me, that makes sense. This is very, very important, okay? It's a big deal. Okay, so why does this all matter? Well, let's take a little pause for some guiding theory. And I say guiding theory because theory in culture studies is kind of weird, all right? Physics, math, chemistry, a theory, you put some information into it, it will give you an answer, right? Unless it's quantum mechanics, and we have a bunch of different answers. But it will give you an answer, right? So So you can sit down and you can do some math and you say, okay, I've thought this out and boom, here it is. Okay? There's no equation. There's no equation that says, when you enter Jodie Whittaker into this show, this will be the ratings and this would, if such a thing existed, the BBC would love to have it, right? They would desperately want that thing. And we as scholars, we don't have that either. But what theory will do for us as cultural scholars is it will help us understand things, right? So it guides our thinking. It suggests areas that we can look at, things that we pay attention to. So, not surprisingly, I'm going to share a couple of my favorites with you, and they're going to help me out here. In this book, this is Understanding Popular Culture. This is a 1989 book by Jon Fisk with a terrible cover. Jon Fisk is sort of a big name in culture studies. He comes out of British cultural studies, and he's very interested in the audience. Okay. And he defines popular culture, this is my favorite definition of popular culture. Popular culture is made by the people at the interface between the products of the culture industries and everyday life. Okay, so the products of the culture industries and everyday life. So what does that mean? Well, that means that popular culture is constructed and contested. All right, so somebody makes these things. Okay, culture industries, they're there to make money, right? They're not making Doctor Who because you love Doctor Who. Right? I don't want to shatter anybody's dreams, but they're not making it because you love it. They want you to love it, okay? And they hope you love it. But secondary to all concerns is money, okay? Even in a place where broadcasting standards are a little different and you think about things in different ways, Doctor Who is a gigantic cash cow for the BBC. They make a lot of money off of the show, okay? So they make this, they design this, okay, and they send it out into the world. And then audiences interact with it and they construct their own meanings from it. All right? And the great thing about people is they're really never the same. Okay? And so as a result, they come up with different meanings. So then what happens is they start talking to each other and they start contesting those meanings and they start getting into fights. Okay? And they start having arguments and they go on the internet and they say terrible things to each other. Okay? And they agree with each other and they do those things. And then they argue back with the BBC. Okay, so this model of popular culture, it focuses on the dynamism, all right? Because this is happening all the time, I mean, countless times. We cannot follow it all, okay? It's out there, thanks to the miracle of the internet, it's happening faster and more pervasively than it ever has before. This happens every day with everything, right? So this happened, if you watch the Cloverfield movie after the Super Bowl, you're contesting the meaning. If you watch the Super Bowl, you're contesting the meaning. If you're a Patriots fan, you're really contesting the meaning. Those kinds of things happen. This is major. Okay, this is major. Like I just implied, it's more major than the Super Bowl. Yes, it is. Okay, this is a major moment, and it's more than just a recasting, right? I mentioned Ben Affleck as Batman the other day. Or the other day. That's a while back. They were talking about the bright lights, and time is flowing strangely up here because of those bright lights. Light affects gravity, time, etc. Ben Affleck, and boy, doesn't it seem like it's been too long since Ben Affleck's been Batman? But Ben Affleck, he became Batman, right? And people argued about that, and as you can see, I'm maybe not completely happy about that. We're used to doing that. We're used to arguing about recasting, right? So from Adam West all the way down to Ben Affleck, we can argue about different Batmen. And we have different Bonds. Everybody has a favorite Bond, right? So it's Sean Connery for me, a good friend of mine, Roger Moore. We can contest those meanings. And Sherlock Holmes is good grief. There's so many Sherlock. Roger Moore was a Sherlock Holmes too, which is really weird. So there's a lot of squabbling to be done. There's a lot of dynamic conversations to have. The thing that makes this so fascinating is not just that it's one of my favorite shows, it's that narratively speaking, okay, what makes the Doctor, the main character of Doctor Who, so different from these other characters is that this is the same being, okay? So what is happening is we are creating something that has an entirely different personality, but is somehow the same character. And so you can see it not just as a recasting, but also as a replacement. And, as again, if we're attentive, we've noticed, suddenly we replace this character with a female. Okay, so suddenly this character is female after all this time. Now, replacement is interesting to me because one of the things that I'm very fascinated with in popular culture is what I call replacement heroes. Okay, so over in another part of popular culture, we replace people all the time. Okay, we tend to think of superheroes as very stable things. You know, fixed. Well, Batman's Batman. You know, Batman always wins. Batman's Batman. Superman's Superman. Captain America's Captain America. Well, except for that time he stopped being Captain America, and then they had to find another Captain America. And that's happened about 20 times. Okay, that's my favorite right there. That's a great cover. Who will be Captain America? And you can look down in there and see all the possibilities. You know, Nick Fury, you know, over the Thing somehow, and the Super Patriots back there. That's the guy that ends up getting that job. But that lets them play with the character, right? And then they can examine what does it mean to be Captain America. This has also allowed creators to experiment with diversity. Okay, so that the double identity nature of superheroes in the past has allowed both Marvel and DC to take white male characters and replace them with characters that aren't white males. Okay, so here you see a couple of classic examples. Here you see Jon Stewart. And this might be unusual for the young people who think of Jon Stewart as the Green Lantern, because that's the cool one that you got in the Justice League cartoon. But for many, many years in the comics, Green Lantern was Hal Jordan. John was his temporary replacement. Okay, now he is a separate Green Lantern. Down at the bottom you see James Rhodes, right? That's Don Cheadle from the movies, right? The War Machine guy. In the comics, Tony Stark's alcoholism gets too much every now and then. Jim Rhodes puts the armor on. He goes off to the Iron Man. Okay, this has happened for years. That Jon Stewart comic there, that's from the 70s. The Iron Man stuff is from the 80s. Lately, Marvel Comics has really been trying to find a way to embrace this diversity, okay? And they're doing it because they're desperate for the money thing we were talking about earlier. Comic book audiences are dwindling, right? Comic book movies, it's never been a better time to be a superhero fan, right? You know, I mean, Ant-Man is popular, right? That's the world we live in now. The world we live in is where a room full of young people can go, yeah, Ant-Man, right? You know, like, that's a strange world, okay? But what you're not doing is you're not running into the shop, give me an Ant-Man comic, I gotta have it. Is somebody gonna step on him this week? You know, something like that. You're not doing that. So they're trying to find a way to lure in audiences. Primarily their audience has been me, white male suburbanites, right? So they've been trying to find a way to bring people in. And one of the ways that they're trying to do it is by creating more diverse characters. So some examples. This is Miss America Chavez, right? She is awesome. If you have never met Miss America Chavez, you should go meet her sometime because she is fantastic, okay? And she is, so I mess up the terminology, so sometimes I want to say Latina, some people would say Latinx, but she's an amazing character, so we might say Hispanic. She's Hispanic, she's lesbian, she can kick anybody's butt. Her power is literally to kick the universe so hard she can open holes to other places. But in her name, Miss America is the name of a World War II era character. Another great one, Miss Marvel. Okay, Kamala Khan, the first Pakistani American superhero. Kamala is fantastic. You should go meet her too. All right. Her name harkens back to the original Miss Marvel. Okay, Carol Danvers. Right. That's going to be Brie Larson in the movie that's coming up. Carol Danvers was Miss Marvel. Now she's Captain Marvel, and Kamala is Miss Marvel. And this also lets Marvel keep names in play. Keeps the copyright going. Okay, because they have to keep things going. This is my favorite example. Because when this was announced, this was really funny. They announced this and they said, Thor is a woman. And that is not really what happened. Thor did not sit down and kind of say, well, you know, I've been in the wrong body all these years and had this big identity crisis. That's not what occurred, okay? What happened is a woman is Thor. Okay, so basically Jane Foster, right? Remember Natalie Portman in the movie? Jane Foster. Jane Foster in the comics for many decades was the damsel in distress, the nurse that pined after Thor. Oh, Thor, you're so beautiful, you know, and wonderful, and if only Don Blake was more like you, and if only she knew the truth. But eventually, Jane Foster, when Thor proved unworthy to carry the hammer, Jane picked it up, and now she is Thor. Okay, and it's an interesting spin because Jane has cancer, and there's all these kind of fascinating things where if she goes back to normal, she'll be dying of cancer again, and all that stuff. It's, you know, it's classic Marvel melodrama. But the great thing about this is this was a commercial success. When Jane became Thor, Thor started selling twice as many comics as it had been. Okay, now that's come down since then, but that was a big deal. Another great example is Sam Wilson, the Falcon, finally became Captain America. The problem there is it got caught up in that really weird fascist Captain America Hail Hydra thing, so you know, like just forget it, let it go. Marvel is also really good at having their diversity and their old school too. So there's another Spider-Man. You might know Miles Morales, right? Miles is, he's black and he's Puerto Rican, if I remember correctly. So there's 2 Spider-Man characters now in the mainstream Marvel universe. And so you can have your white Spider-Man and your diverse Spider-Man and they're friends and they hang out and have sandwiches together, okay? So why am I setting all this up for you? Well, because this is a good strategy, right? If you want to try something, if you're a company and you want to try lure in new audiences, okay, this might be a way to make this happen. But what's happened in the comic industry is there's been a bit of a backlash, all right? So in March 2017, this quote traveled farther than it was intended to travel, okay? But this quote got out, and this is from David Gabriel. He was the Marvel VP of sales. And they went off to a big convention where they met with retailers, with comic shop owners. And he said, what we heard was that people didn't want any more diversity. They didn't want female characters out there. That's what we heard, whether we believe that or not. I don't know if that's what's really true, but that's what we saw in the sales, okay? Now, people took that to mean that Marvel was blaming diverse characters for a drop in their sales, okay? And people have argued that that's not true, but it set up a big kind of battle, all right? I want to bring in another quick bit of theory here, and then we'll get back to Dr. Who. Another one of my favorite couple of scholars, John Tulloch and, there's an and missing. John Tulloch and Henry Jenkins wrote this book together, and by that I mean literally together. They got mad at each other, and so one wrote some chapters and one wrote the other chapters. I have that from Henry Jenkins himself. And Tulloch says that fans are a powerless elite. Think about it, right? Nobody called you, nobody called me. Mike, who should be the next doctor? Hey, I should know this. I published an article about this. They should call me up. They don't call you up. Who should be the next Batman, right? I've read Batman comics my whole life. I can think who the next Batman is. They don't call you, okay? When you know other things, like if you know quantum mechanics, then you can actually get in there and you can help design nuclear reactors. They want your expertise, right? So poli-sci, maybe they'll bring you in, for this conversation about conservative groups becoming more popular, okay? But when you're a Doctor Who fan, they don't call you up. They don't ask you what you think. So as a result, you're a powerless elite. You have all this knowledge, you have all this awareness, but it doesn't get you anything. And regeneration in Doctor Who is a massive, massive rupture of the status quo. Okay, even though it's expected, even though it's known, even though some people look forward to it, when it happens, it is huge. And it totally exposes a moment of considerable fan powerlessness, okay? It makes you very aware that you don't get to pick. Now, if you're lucky, they pick somebody you like and then you get really excited, okay? But if they pick somebody you don't like, then you get upset. So no wonder some people get worked up, okay? So this is some guy named Technically Ron. Yeah, some people are reading these things now. Some guy named Technically Ron decided to take some internet responses and make episode titles out of them. So somebody said, nobody wants a TARDIS full of bras. Time travel is for men and men only men. So there, and there's your Freudian thesis. The BBC are trying to brainwash your children, not our children, your children. And political correctness should not exist in space. Okay. So no wonder people get upset about it. All right, something has happened, and people have had no power to affect it, and it's a major part of their lives. Fans invest energy into these things, right? They put their identity on these things, and when these things go a different way, right, it's huge. Your favorite team may have just lost the Super Bowl, but it'll have another chance to lose next year. Okay, this change lasts for a while. All right? So, I've set up this sort of situation here. And let me just, because I can't see what time, let me just see how we're doing. Yeah, we're doing all right. So let's ask ourselves, what do you do about what's happening? Okay, so there's an assumption built into this part of the speech. And the assumption is that you value more diverse representation of popular culture. So that's where I'm coming from. That's the perspective I'm coming from. Okay, I'm saying that it is probably better to have more diverse characters. I'm not saying there's something wrong with white males. I'm just saying, let's have some other characters. Okay. So if that's not your perspective, you may find the rest of the speech difficult, okay? But I have some advice, right? Because this is a conversation that we participate in, and if you are a Doctor Who fan, this conversation is going to consume you. You've already had it happen in July. It flared up again in December when the new costume was introduced. You saw Jodie in the costume a while ago. Some people don't like the costume. And then it's going to happen again when our actual episodes start airing in August, I think, is when it's supposed to happen, at the end of summer this year, okay? People are going to get in there and they're going to get upset. And so, here's what we do. Here's how we live in this world, okay? So, one thing we can do is we can ignore the outliers. So I found these on change.org. There are all these online, attempts to change all of this. That, go in here and sign up. If we can just get 1,500 people to say they're not happy, then surely the BBC will change their mind. Right? Another one has like 300 as their threshold, which is really fun because they're not going to do it for 1,800 people. I'm sorry. So you see, I'm trying to find like a representative kind of sample. So this is one of my favorites. I am sick of being told what to think by liberals who would kill me if they could. You're not going to reason with this person, okay? When you encounter this person, some people are bringing to this discussion something that is not part of Doctor Who, okay? And that's fine, because popular culture is often a place where that happens. But this is such an outlier that when you encounter people like this, it's just best to move away from them, okay? It's just, sit somewhere else on the bus, move somewhere else in the convention, maybe just, consider another, web page to talk on. You can use the power you have as a fan, right? So there's a typo here, and that's okay because we all make typos. So it says, this destroys Time Lord traditions. It's supposed to be traditions. Okay, use the power you have as a fan. Kate is here. Kate, why is that person wrong? Kate knows why that person is wrong, right? Have we had a female Time Lord? Have we had a male and female Time Lord change before? Yes, we have. Okay. It's happened a couple of times. The Master, one of the Doctor's arch enemies, was a female. Okay, we've seen it just sort of happen in an episode where there was this white male character and he got gravely injured, went down, suddenly black female. Okay, so the traditions are not the traditions that some people think they are. Okay, so what you see out online is you see people saying things like, "I don't think you understand this show." I don't think you're getting this. And they're taking that fan knowledge, right? That thing that sometimes makes you feel like a powerless elite, and they're using it to argue in favor of these sorts of things, okay? So, you will hear people respond and they will say things like, well, it's an alien. It's an alien on a made-up show. Maybe the rules of biology don't apply. You also need to consider very challenging arguments, okay? So this is, I see this strain of thought every now and then. So here's a person that says, the Doctor is the only non-violent male role model for young boys. Okay? Now there's some truth to that. Okay? One of the things we can talk about is how Doctor Who has worked as a show. Doctor Who is rarely, it can be, but it is rarely a program where you win by punching somebody in the head. Okay? That's Batman's preferred method, and who am I to argue with Batman? But the Doctor doesn't do that, right? Doctor Who is a show about being smart. Okay, nerds love this show because basically everything that nerds do, being smart and talking fast and knowing things nobody else does and running to get out of the way of big scary people, those are all the skills that allow the Doctor to win. Okay, and we are losing a male character here that is very unusual. Okay, in the vast panoply of all these other characters. So that's something you have to think about. That's something you have to look at and to kind of say, well, yeah, that might be a point, okay? But is that a price worth paying, okay? Because maybe it's time for this character to be more diverse. Maybe it's time for this character to start going in directions that this character's never gone before. You can also challenge the sexist stereotypes, right? So you see this a lot. A doctor is a male, a nurse is a female. The proof of why that is wrong is left to the student. Many of my colleagues are here who are very learned feminist scholars, and I'm sure they could very immediately produce 35 arguments why this is wrong. But also, we just know. Okay, we just know that's straight up sexism. Okay, it doesn't work that way. And what you can do with those people is you can school them, because this is one of my favorite moments in the whole thing. When the argument first starts rolling around, and people start getting upset and start saying these things, Merriam-Webster Dictionary, which my students know is never allowed as a source in their papers. Merriam-Webster Dictionary trolls everybody. Doctor has no gender in English. Merriam-Webster Dictionary's got really snarky lately. If you've been following them, they've been kind of digging at Trump and doing some other things to other people. But doctor has no gender in English. It doesn't. Okay, and this is an excellent opportunity to use popular culture to kind of teach people that there are some things that might be a little bit wrong in their thinking. I'm going to say some thank yous real quick, and then I'm going to see if you all have any questions, okay? So I want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank the good people at Westover Honors, okay? They're very kind to me, they're very wonderful to me, take very good care of me. They say all these nice things about me, and sometimes I don't even understand who they're talking about because they say all these great things. So they have showered me with a lot of love, and I want to give that love back. For some reason, every time Ed DeClaire does a presentation, he's obsessed with this picture that he took of the Eiffel Tower. So, Ed, there's your Eiffel Tower. That's when they went out and filmed an episode of Doctor Who in France. I want to thank Lynchburg College for regenerating the ballroom just for me. Just for me. That's why I want you to go out and I want you to tell people that. Okay? I tried to convince people many years ago that they redid Hopwood Auditorium just for me, but it didn't work. But I think if we work hard at this, we can convince people that they did this just for me. Okay? That I was the inaugural, even though there was a speech the night before, I was the inaugural event in here. They did this just for me. My family, okay, there's my wife. My kids are not here. My son's not here, which is how you were able to hear the presentation. My parents, who are fantastic. Tomorrow my father is going to be 80 years old, so a little shout out to Dad whenever you see this. Happy 80th birthday. My friends, my students, God help you, you're trapped, you're a captive audience. You're just stuck there, listening to me talk about this crazy, crazy show, and the show is just totally nuts. And then finally, of course, the BBC for giving this show to me in the first place. So that's me. And that's what I have to say, and I hope it was useful and informative to you. And I will be happy to attempt to answer any questions you have. Thank you. Yes, sir.
What do you think of the idea that this sort of remixing, for a better word, of characters is hampering creativity?
Oh, fascinating. Okay, so the question, if you couldn't hear it, is what do I think of this idea that remixing characters is hampering creativity? Now, you mean in terms of Doctor Who, or you mean in terms of Marvel stuff?
Well, like, just generally now there's this trend of just rebooting and swapping up. So
okay.
I was going with comic books.
Okay, awesome. Well, first of all, this is different than a reboot. And so a reboot is when you start over and you pretend Ben Affleck's always been Batman. Right? Or Christian Bale is Batman now, and it's not George Clooney, thankfully. Right? So that's a reboot. Or it's a different Spider-Man now. It's we're just starting over. The issue with rebooting seems to be timing, so that audiences are becoming very dissatisfied with reboots that happen right on top of each other. It took them about 5 years to reboot Spider-Man, and everybody your age thinks that's a bad thing, which amazes me. How much the earlier Spider-Man films kind of hooked in with them. Tobey Maguire was sort of like their Spider-Man, and then it was like something totally different. I don't know that it hampers creativity because it lets you tell some really interesting stories, right? So when Captain America is suddenly black, as he did, as Sam Wilson did, he can now find himself in a situation. He fought some racist bad guys called the Serpent Society, who were trying to chase immigrants out at the border. Okay, and that can activate all kinds of political issues that you can do with white Steve Rogers Captain America, but you can do even more interestingly with Sam Wilson. With Doctor Who, it actually is, I think, the thing that recharges the show. So that every couple of years, right, when the Doctor spins off into this new personality, you're getting a new show that isn't a new show. You're getting a new character that is still the same character, like, that's still going to do the same thing, but might talk with a different accent, or, reference things differently or act in a different way. So that, yes and no, that would be my example. In some cases, if you're not careful, you can really mess things up. It just, you make these mistakes and it comes back to haunt you. And it comes back to bite you. One of the things, sorry, this is turning into a long answer. One of the things that has been problematic in the comic book embracing of diversity is that some people have felt that so many changes have happened so quickly because they're trying to sell #1 issues rather than building these characters up and develop them across that way. But great question, thank you. What else? What else can we do? Where is mine? Yes?
So you mentioned before that they're starting to see like a trend maybe towards not wanting as much diversity. Do you think that that trend exists? And how do you think that relates to like the natural human nature that people don't want change?
Oh, okay, interesting. So the question is, so we're back to this Marvel quote. So the folks at Marvel, that quote is so strange because I don't think that's what Gabriel was trying to say. I think what Gabriel was trying to say, and I think they tried to walk it back, was, well, we've looked at some numbers and these characters aren't selling. So it's weird. They want diversity. I think Marvel is seriously committed to this. And I think Marvel knows that if they don't embrace this, they're running out of, people to read the comics. Okay? They started losing years ago to Japanese, to manga and things like that. And they want to pull these audiences in. Okay? So they have that sincere desire, I think. Remember, they want to make money. Okay? So they have the sincere desire beneath the desire to make money. But they're not making the money. Okay? And that's the weird thing. So what is the cause of that? So some of the arguments that went around this, so you asked me like, what causes this? So one of the arguments that went around it was people saying, wow, we don't want diversity. There is I didn't mention it during speech, but there's this strange, very vocal group that is kind of bouncing around popular culture, just sort of trolling in this way. There's this set of people who, I don't know what their name was, and they don't need their name, doesn't need to be put out there anyway. But they were literally trying to sabotage the Rotten Tomato scores of the Black Panther movie because I guess they can't accept black people in Black Panther. It's a little confusing to me, because it says Black Panther, like it's not White Panther, or Black Panther has white pals, right? That's strange to me, So there are people that are out there fighting these things. But the other argument that was advanced was that you're not nurturing these properties very, very well. So that the Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, right? Miss Marvel was reintroduced in a #1 issue. And that #1 issue, so the second time in the volume 2, right? Those #1 issues outsold the previous, but then fell below the levels. So it turns out every time, in comics they call it an excellent jumping on point for new readers. It turns out it's an excellent jumping off point for old readers. So they're not nurturing, they're not doing what they do best, which is making characters and letting them grow. So again, a long answer to your question, which is basically, I think you can do it if you do it carefully. If Jodie Whittaker comes out in August as the Doctor and the ratings go up, that's going to be a great thing. But what's going to keep those ratings up isn't the fact that they hired a woman to do it. And it isn't the fact that they hired a really talented actress, right? Because Jodie Whittaker, she's pretty cool, right? We don't watch Broadchurch because Mrs. Robinson doesn't like to see things happen to little kids. So we weren't allowed. So that's open knowledge. So I haven't seen it, but I understand she's fantastic in it. She's in Attack the Block, which I love Attack the Block. That movie's crazy. She's a great actress. She's going to do fine. But if we don't back her up, if they don't back her up with good stories, then this is going to crash and burn. This is going to be a big disaster. So they have to get the work, and they have to put the work in there. And luckily, the new showrunner, Chris Chibnall, is the guy that does Broadchurch, and he's very committed to this, and I think they're going to try their hardest. Does that sound like an answer? That was a little rambly, but yeah, you've been in class. What else? What else can I answer for you? Where's my, yes?
So with the departure of Peter Capaldi also comes the departure of Stephen Moffat.
Yes.
What other changes do you think that Chibnall will introduce, and do you think he may introduce more female Time Lords, possibly from Classic, such as Susan or the Ronnie?
Interesting. Ooh, wow, you know what? That was such a die-hard fan question. That was awesome. Okay, so here's what I know. Here's what I've heard. So we've seen photographs of potential supporting cast, all of whose names have just gone right out of my head. But it's, I believe it is an African male, and I think she might be Indian, I'm not sure. And then it's an older white male, so it's a great actor, and he was on Law and Order UK, and you can't remember his name either, but remember him, he was really cool, the season cop. So they're trying to build a little bit more diversity in there. I have not heard a word beyond that about what they're doing. I think, first of all, as one diehard fan to another, where has the Randy been? Why hasn't she come back yet? Or maybe she could be a dude, I don't know. But one would hope that they would see this as an opportunity to take this character, right, put this character into familiar situations and watch this character do different things and have different things happen around her that are hopefully written well and aren't just, you're open now, right? So yeah, but I don't have any information. If you ask me, what would I do if I was your first episode, you go Daleks and you just run all out and you have a blast and you show everybody that Doctor Who hasn't changed at all and you go nuts with it, but they don't pay me, so they don't listen to me. What else? What else can I answer for you? Anybody? Daleks versus Cybermen? Anything? Good. Are you full of information? How many folks have never seen an episode of Doctor Who? Yeah, all right, cool. Hey, look, go watch an episode. Maybe we should have made you watch an episode. Let me give you a piece of advice for how to watch Doctor Who. Okay, Doctor Who started in 1963. Do not do what young people do. Do not binge. Don't go to the beginning. Okay, because first of all, it's a very different show, and it was a very weird show. Pick what they call new Doctor Who. Pick something from 2005 on, and just pick something at random. Don't let somebody tell you, well, your first episode has to be this. Okay. Pick something at random, pick something on BBC America, and drop yourself right down into it. The joy of Doctor Who is it makes some but very little allowance for people's lack of familiarity with it. It just jumps right into it, and it goes and it goes and it goes. So my wife is down front. I married my wife even though she was not a Doctor Who fan. But she became one. She became one on a trip to Australia, and it was hilarious to watch the transformation come about her. And she just saw an episode out of nowhere, and she was totally hooked. And what was really fun was watching these episodes with her when the show came back, because the show was talking to her one way, and it was signaling me as a diehard fan, like, here's this. So there were a couple episodes we watched with my daughter, and something would happen, and I'd laugh, and they'd look at me like, that was a reference to something that happened in 1968. So these things are accessible but inaccessible. Drop into the middle of it and just enjoy it. You are lucky. You have this thing called the internet. Any question you have about Doctor Who will be easily answered. When it was my day, I didn't even know there had been more than one Doctor. I can remember the exact moment when I discovered that there were other Doctors, and my world just kind of popped. And then I found this little magazine. There were only 5 Doctors when I was younger. Back in the day, when TV was steam powered. And episodes came over from England on the back of trawlers. I had a magazine that had 5 Doctors in it, and I just devoured the thing. Poor thing, I still got it, of course, because can't get rid of anything. But it's all dog-eared and stuff. Just about it. But just drop in, check it out, and have fun with it. See if it's something you like. Don't worry about it. Look, this is a character that is over 50 years old. We don't even know her real name is. So get in there, have fun, enjoy. Anything else I can do for you people while you've got me? Yes, ma'am.
What is your favorite episode of your favorite documentary?
Oh, I have to leave. Time's up. My favorite episode is easy. I like The Impossible Planet and The Satan Pit. Okay, that's my favorite. So my students get stuck watching that every now and then. I love that episode. To me, that is quintessential Doctor Who, right? So if you wish to ignore my advice earlier, which is don't let somebody tell you what episode to watch first, watch The Impossible Planet and Satan Pit. I can't stand trying to pick a favorite Doctor. It's like picking a favorite child, right? They don't let me do that. No, look, when I was younger, it was all Tom Baker. It was all Fourth Doctor. That's what I knew. That's what I grew up on. They always say Doctor's like Bond, right? Whatever James Bond you saw first, that's your Bond. Sylvester McCoy later. Love Sylvester McCoy, the Seventh Doctor. It's David Tennant. It's 10th Doctor, David Tennant. I don't know what clicked there, but it just really clicked for me. But I love them all, right? And maybe this 13th Doctor will be my next favorite, and maybe the 14th or the 15th. I intend to watch this until I die. Which is hopefully a long time from now. So yeah. Well, what is your favorite?
My favorite.
It's you answered. Yeah, you answer the question. You can't just do it to me. You don't sit out there in the audience and be like, "Watch what's going to do with it." What do you think?
I think Vincent and the Doctor.
That is a very good episode. That is a very good episode. Okay. And so is Matt Smith your doctor?
It's close, but
Yeah.
probably yes.
Yeah, cool. No, that's a great episode. It would be another fun place to start. A great place to use your liberal arts education and your Westover bag, well-rounded knowledge. Because it's about this information. Anything else? Thank you. I like the squirmy questions, but I don't want to. Anything else? Yes?
Kind of going off that, do you have a favorite regeneration scene?
Oh, good grief.
Spoiler.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
I don't know. I like David Tennant's exit. I think that's a lot of fun. I think that went fairly well. They've gotten more elaborate. My question as a fan is, it seems on the new series every time it happens, everything blows up. So why not just step outside? Like you're supposed to be the smartest person in the world, right? If you've seen this recent one, the 13th Doctor, she's in a lot of trouble. She's in a lot of trouble. The ship is blown up and then disappeared, and she's fallen out of it. It's very interesting to see what happens next. Maybe just next time, step outside. You know. Do that out there. What's your favorite?
I liked Capaldi's.
Yeah,
Capaldi's
it was good. I mean, it was good. A little long-winded for me, but it was nice. It went so it's Capaldi, but it was nice and it had a good sort of transitional feel there, and was really a good message for a show that was about to change dramatically. It was almost like Stephen Moffat was talking to Chris Chibnall and passing on advice about the series. Cool. What else? I can stay all night. I can't. It's just maybe not. Apparently there's a child there to get it.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all. It's been fun. Please exit carefully from my ballroom.